Committee of the 6th of June 23. Are you happy with the contents, please? Okay, all right, fine. So moving on, we have apologies. Apologies, please. Holmes and second. Thank you very much.
Madam Chairman, we've had subsequent apologies from councillors Kath Williams and councillors Kath Perry as well, please, for the minutes.
Thank you. So moving on to the declarations of interest. Declarations of interest. To receive any declarations of interest, please. Okay, thank you very much. So I'm moving on to item 4, which is the South Staffordshire Community Safety Partnership Action Plan 2023-2026. It's the update on progress, a joint presentation on Staffordshire Police and the Community Wellbeing and Partnership Officer. That will be Maggie Quinn. Thank you. Over to you.
It's okay. It's one.
Introduce yourselves.
Thank you. Good evening, members. Hopefully you all know who we are, but I'm Maggie Quinn, Community Wellbeing and Partnership for South Staffordshire Council.
And good evening, everybody. Darren Puck, the Inspector, Deputy Commander for Staffordshire, representing Staffordshire Police.
Thank you. Can you hear us? Is the microphone on? Oh, seems to be going on. Okay. Hopefully it will stand. So tonight we are just coming to give you a bit of an update on the Community Safety Partnership Plan. It began in April 2023 until March 2026. So for this first year, the outcomes of the plan are to reduce all recorded crime by 2%. That was from a recorded number of 3,958 crimes. To reduce vehicle crime by 2%, that was from a recorded number of 463 crimes. To increase the number of repeat victims of domestic abuse accessing services by 20%, that was looking at 29 high-risk victims at the time. To reduce serious violence, including domestic abuse and violence against women and girls by 2%, that was from a recorded crime and incident level of 818. To reduce antisocial behaviour by 3%, that was from a recorded number of 1,498 incidents. And to maintain a high feeling of safety during the day, 88%, and improve the feeling of safety after dark, 67%. That is what residents perceive to feel as they are out and about in their local communities. So just to go through all of those outcomes, I'm just going to pass you over to Inspector Platt.
Thanks very much. Okay, so in relation to overall crime, find that in my documents, just so I can try and keep up with Maggie's swift presentation. So overall crime for Staffordshire Police as total, in terms of the last 12 months, changed as 10%. The South Staffs is actually 30% increase. That's changed in the last 12 months. However, what I'll try to do during any element of this presentation is to try to add a little bit of context, because sometimes statistics can be misleading. However, in March earlier this year, that increase was 21%. So our 13% increase is an increase, but it's less of an increase than what we had when we're looking at back in March. So actually things are all the way down. Some of the challenges with that, I mean, I've just took a snapshot here of one article I read on our internal communications. Some challenges around demand, managing to demand, challenges for the force. On the 9th of September, we had 1,009 calls in one day. So those are just some of the challenges that we're trying to deal with, which are going to have make an impact on all of these statistics overall. Just something sits in the background, just for consideration when we're talking about all of these matters. Okay, for total crime value?
Yeah.
Okay. Do you want me to move on to the vehicle? Okay. So vehicle crime. So okay. Again, 29% increase change in the last 12 months compared to the same period last year. We're in a situation again where it is an increase, but it's less of an increase because back in March, that was a 78% increase. Now, in order to target the issues we've had with theft of motor vehicles, which has also been mixed in with, it's essentially car key burglaries. We have previously launched the Operation Bonus, which is a specific policing operation targeting vehicle crime. It was more focused on South Staffordshire. However, when we're talking about the groups of criminals involved in this, we're talking about cross-border crimes, organised crime groups, not just South Staffordshire, but other areas within Staffordshire Police. So the Operation Bonus is turned from a South Staffordshire focused operation to a force-wide operation. Now, I've managed to get quite a good document just to kind of highlight some context that sat behind. I know we've got 29% increase. Yes, it's less of an increase. But when you start to look at some of the positives in terms of the outcomes from the Operation Bournemouth, I'll just highlight some of them now. It highlights some really positive work that you just would not see behind that 29% figure. So when we're talking about force level, which includes South Staffordshire, there's been 109 arrests, okay, and that is between December 22 and also October 23. Some of those have been as a result of collaboration with other forces, because people who are coming to offend on South Staffordshire were also offending in other force areas. We have 10 convictions, which is totaled 17 years and 11-month custodial sentence, 18 months community orders, and also suspended sentences. We've got 10 pending Crown Court trials for ongoing investigations. We've got 55 suspects who are on bail or under investigation pending further inquiries. Between December 22 and September 2023, there's been a 40% reduction in the keyless theft of motor vehicles. And also what we've been working on is a culture of proactivity, which is trying to develop our officers, improve some of the inexperience that we've struggled with in the past. And that's just things like developing their ability to deal with, respond to these types of incidents, and also develop their ability to and confidence around their stop searches as well, when we're talking about proactivity to try and work to prevent these issues and catch these people. We have worked collaboratively with ROCU, which is the regional organised crime unit, for proactivity and also investigations, and we've been using the latest technology and intelligence to try and recover stolen vehicles and identify offenders. And we've also been trying to influence manufacturers as well around what they are doing to improve the security of the vehicles that are being sold and manufactured and developed in relation to keyless ignition. And we've also been looking at the management of offenders as well, which is the link between integrated offender management, and that's from Staffordshire and also West Midlands Police, and that is the management of offenders who are now on the radar in terms of bail, released on investigation, post-conviction. So hopefully that has just tried to, although that isn't a South Staffordshire focused set of figures, it's a force-wide operation which incorporates South Staffordshire, and that operation has clearly had a positive impact force-wide, including on our area. Good. Take a vehicle crime.
Yes. So to increase the number of repeat victims of domestic abuse accessing services, this is based on MARAC. Now, MARAC is an acronym for Multi-Agency Risk Assessment Conference, and at that conference, high-risk victims of domestic abuse are discussed. And this is where the evaluation of these victims accessing services takes place, because following on from a MARAC, these victims are signposted into services straight away, so they do access. So initially, April 22 to September 22, there were 51 cases heard at MARAC. April 23 to September 23 was 68. So we have seen, unfortunately, we've seen that increase, which means that more victims of domestic violence are being heard at this high-risk conference. But fortunately, they are now all accessing services and being supported by housing, being supported by police, being supported by the district council, being supported by whoever they need some extra support from.
I think Maggie, I've got more information on the next one, which is the serious violence one for the MARAC information.
It's the serious.
Right, so we're on that one.
Sorry.
Thank you. Thank
No
you.
worries.
Right, so in relation to reducing serious violence, okay, so again, I always like to try and just explain a little bit about the figures. There's two elements here. So we've got the more serious violent crime and injury, where we've got female victims. So at first look, quite a concerning statistic there. It shows 229% increase in the last 12 months. And that's purely because we've had a new offence which is basically an offence of non-fatal strangulation that used to be recorded as a common assault in less serious violent crime. However, we've got no 12-month comparison. That increase is shown as a 229% increase, because we wouldn't have had any last time because the offence wasn't there. So that's why that is shown as 229%, which is skewed figures, and it's done the same for every single local policing team within Staffordshire Police. In terms of less serious violent crime with injury, where we've got a female victim, that is a 30% increase within the last 12 months. Now, so some of the things that we're trying to do to start dealing with both of these matters, really, we always try and look at long-term planning, and it's an investment in education to start with in schools, and that can be around unwanted contact, harassment, stalking, domestic violence. All of our PCSOs have been trained in delivering specific educational packages which are recognised by schools, and that is something it's not just a PCSO will turn up on a random day and deliver one of these presentations. It's built into the school curriculum where they'll go in on a particular day where school are probably covering similar things around safeguarding, and the PCSOs will give that input. And that's something that we may not see the benefit of for some time, because we're trying to just get in there to young people to offer that necessary advice to prevent future offending and also encourage reporting of such incidents. We have recently done a Violence Against Women and Girls Week of Action, and that was focusing on outstanding offenders for domestic violence cases. During that week of action, we would have reviewed officers' caseloads to identify them and physically gone out and tried to arrest these people. We've tried to increase the number of bail checks, so where we've got offenders on bail for domestic violence related cases. We've made sure that we are doing bail compliance checks, and we're also linking in with the victims who, where there is an offender on bail, we make sure that victim contact is where it needs to be, and that they've got the necessary support from support services. We've also got some further plans which are going to take us up towards Christmas, when we're always going to get a natural spike in domestic violence related crimes, and also serious violent crime anyway. And we're going to be doing the same, really, trying to do some joint operations with Women's Aid where we are visiting domestic violence victims, where we've got an offender on bail, and just trying to do that kind of positive support and referral. I think that pretty much is it for that area.
Yeah, can I just add also that as a community safety partnership, we are going to be doing some campaign work for women, specifically in the autumn time. So we have a community safety newsletter, and in November we're just going to do an article about women being out offering personal alarms. We'll have some here at South Staffordshire Council that if anybody would like to come and collect a personal alarm for themselves, then they'll be able to come free of charge to have one when they're out and about, especially if they're going out after dark, just to hopefully add some reassurance to our residents when they are just hopefully socialising with friends.
Antisocial behaviour. So we have quite a good change there, which is a minus 32% change in the last 12 months. The force in the last 12 months has seen a reduction of minus 26%. So we're doing quite well, really, from a comparison with an overall force level. So I think the important thing with that is clearly there are still antisocial behaviour issues. But there's always that view of what the statistics look like and what people see, and how things look to them and how things feel in terms of antisocial behaviour and their people's feeling of safety during the day, during the evening. So I think that's important again. I won't just try and hone on in the fact that we've had a really good decrease and move on. It's also important to note the fact that sometimes the statistics don't always reflect how people feel. And what I can say with that is, we've got PCSOs, we've got neighbourhood police officers, and we're currently increasing the number of the neighbourhood officers on our teams. And we're going to have 2 new neighbourhood policing officers joining the team very shortly, and then another one joining in March. And that's all part of forward planning. We've got an officer retiring in March, and we want to make sure that spot's filled. And we also have an officer who is trained in problem solving, so that what they do is they would weed feed into them any antisocial behaviour issues that people are reporting, but they also look at these statistics as well and try and identify any patterns, and if they've got any repeat offenders or repeat victims. If we've got repeat offenders, then obviously we'll start looking a bit deeper into that, how we can educate or even enforce, and what powers we can use. In terms of repeat victims, we'd obviously look to see what kind of support we could offer them. And if there are any kind of problem solving methods that we could look at to try and have an impact on that issue. And obviously where we've got repeat victims, we would try and look at who the offenders are and do exactly what I've just already mentioned. That's pretty much it for antisocial behaviour. And obviously I think you've probably got some good work, Maggie, that you'd already recorded in terms of the joint working with the Baggeridge in terms of the SBOs. We're obviously looking at, we've got some issues with car cruising, where we'll be looking at some joint working within the community safety partnership as well. So yeah, that's what you've got anything else to add to that, Maggie?
No, I'll come on to the SBOs a little bit later in the presentation, but yeah, absolutely, car cruising is one that we're looking at. I've had a discussion today with counterparts in Lichfield. We're also going to be talking with counterparts in Wolverhampton, possibly to see if there's a joint project we can do linking to their injunction, or if we take out our own injunction, or if we link with Lichfield, because it's not just happening in South Staffordshire, it is happening all over the county of Staffordshire, and obviously in neighbouring authorities too. But antisocial behaviour, we actually advocate ASB Harmony, run by Staffordshire Victims Gateway, and they are offering a victims champion ASB Victims Champion. So if there are repeat victims of antisocial behaviour, they're referred into ASB Harmony, who have a one-to-one support network there through them during the time of trying to work through the ASB, and then linking into the vulnerability hub, so linking into conversations with up to 30 different organisations, looking at how that particular person can be supported. Okay, maintain that high level of feeling safe during the day. 88% of residents said they felt safe during the day, which is really, really good. If we can improve that, that's what we want to do. We have a partnership calendar, which is police-led. It has been set up by the police, but we are beginning to populate it from partnership point of view as well, meaning that any partners can go out to any activities, any events, any celebrations that are happening in South Staffordshire. So just go and talk to the people who are there. We just had a slow cooker event in Cotswold Village Hall, organised by Staffordshire County Council for victor children and families. A lot of partners were there, a lot of public came in. I went in myself, armed with a survey asking people how safe do they feel during the day, how safe do they feel after dark. It actually was encouraging, because most of the people who were there did feel safe, very safe during the day, which is good to hear. Yes, it does go down to feeling safe rather than very safe after dark. However, people aren't feeling upset and worried to go out, at least not in Cotswold, not in the Cotswold area. So that's very encouraging to hear. But we'll be going round the district to these events. We link in with the PCSOs as well, who usually have a table full of campaign material, full of brilliant little bits and pieces that you can take with you, things like purse bells and little alarms for the house and certain bits for spiking bottles, with lots and lots on a PCSO's table. Sorry. So if you do see any out and about, please go and say hello and pick up whatever you would like or need for free. So those are the types of things we're doing to try and promote the feelings of safety during the day. We're also looking at social media channels. We're doing a lot of campaigns, trying to every month have some sort of campaign. So this month it's going to be something called Take Care, Be Aware, all about Halloween. If you don't want to answer the door, you don't have to. There'll be cards on our reception area here for people to pick up, which are just no trick or treat, that they put in the window with numbers of Staffordshire Police and Staffordshire Fire on the back. So if anybody is worried at any time of day, they can just give that, whatever numbers are there, a quick call. So please do advocate those cards as well when you're out and about. They're free here for people just to put in their windows over the Halloween period and beyond.
Just one thing to add to that last slide, Maggie, was obviously we've got the usual Halloween and one-time nights approaching, where sometimes we can get a spike in social behaviour levels, which can obviously have an impact on those concerns of people at night time during the daytime. So we are going to be setting up some operations for increased visibility in certain areas. And I've also asked my problem-solving officer and also the team to identify some of the locations where we've had most of the main issues. And I will be doing an in advance authorisation at inspector level to highlight the dispersal area. So we have specific dispersal powers that we can use within policing. And I will be doing some dispersal areas, highlighting some dispersal areas. I'll authorise them in advance, so at least the officers can use those powers effectively on those occasions, rather than having to contact an inspector when they're stood in front of a group of youth. So we're just trying to be a little bit more proactive about these events that are up and coming.
Thank you. Right, so looking at priorities, what sort of things have we done? Apologies for the small text. Glad it's small because it looks as if we've done a lot, and actually we have been out and about working in partnership, trying to do as much as possible. So there's a group for the tactical priorities group, which in the community safety plan is quite key to looking at the priorities and working on activities, events to look at them and tackle them. So through that group, a smart water campaign has been taking place in localities 3 and 5, looking at car crime or vehicle crime rather specifically, offering victims of vehicle crime a little pack of DNA liquid, and they mark inside of the vehicle in specific locations, and they have a car sticker as well to say this car is smart watered, which hopefully is a deterrent to would-be criminals. And I believe that has helped, because theft of, as we've heard, even though it's still got an increase, the increase has decreased considerably since March 2023. We are now extending that further than localities 3 and 5 to the whole of the district. So we're actually looking at make and models that are key to being stolen, are more likely to be stolen, and we are offering owners of those vehicles these kits now as well. We've heard a lot about Operation Bournemouth and the successes of that in the district too, and looking at cross-border working, specifically with West Midlands Police and also the Central Motorway Policing Group as well. So serious violence, including domestic abuse and violence against women and girls. Like I said, in the newsletter in November, we're going to be looking at specifically women's safety and offering the alarms through the South Staffordshire Council. So please do tell anybody out and about in your community about the alarms that they can come and pick up. We're also looking at target hardening, specifically victims of domestic abuse through that MARAC process. And smart water is one of the things that we offer as well. And that definitely every single victim who has had smart water has fed back to us that it really has improved their feelings of safety. So that has definitely worked in that case. And then antisocial behaviour. One thing we're looking at in respect of off-road bikes is working with Cannock local policing team and Cannock Chase Council to do a joint activity on Cannock Chase. It will include Shildon Common in South Staffordshire, but it will look at the whole of Cannock Chase as well. We Darren mentioned about the 6 public spaces protection orders that we've got in South Staffordshire. They really have made a difference. Reports in antisocial behaviour have reduced in all locations. Reports of fly tipping, where fly tipping was a problem, have reduced in all locations. And through gathering of evidence, we have had 5 fixed penalty notices issued too. So those have been successful. Community cohesion, we are drawing up a prevent action plan as we speak, which is looking at preventing radicalisation, preventing young vulnerable adults, preventing young people from being drawn into any kind of radicalisation and leading into extremism or into terrorism. But we also are looking at a community cohesion plan. Everybody's aware of the asylum seekers that are currently placed in South Staffordshire. We want to make sure that prevent links in with community cohesion, and eventually will link in with something called the protect duty, which is going to be coming mandatory and a duty in 2025. So the prevent plan will run from 23 to 25, linking to protect and bring the community cohesion along with it as well. And perception versus reality, that very much is about the campaigns, about publicity, about getting out there with that partnership calendar, about linking in with our local residents, our local communities, about the campaigns to reduce crime, make them feel safe, and keep some hints and tips always going out to our local communities about how to keep themselves safe, how to keep their property safe, how to keep their vehicles safe. And that's the current update on the community safety plan. So has anybody got any questions?
Thank you both. Very good. There are a couple of questions. With regard to antisocial behaviour, 3% reduction, could you define the area of antisocial behaviour for, because I just need to know what exactly we're reducing by 3%. Thank you.
Sense.
That was the outcome to reduce.
Right, so that was the outcome,
Yeah.
wasn't it? Yeah. So antisocial behaviour, 3% reduction. That was the intention to reduce, have a 3% reduction in antisocial behaviour for South Staffordshire, and we've achieved the 32% overall of the localities.
So that would, yeah, it is going to include branding and considerate behaviour, which is out and about in the local community, people being affected, not just by young people, but by people they feel are possibly in groups or intimidating at the time. And labour disputes is the second highest antisocial behaviour record. So that very much is where ASB Harmony comes in, supporting residents who are, in most cases, having problems with their neighbours. And then vehicle nuisance is the third highest recording of antisocial behaviour, and baggerage, which had a very high incidence of vehicle nuisance, and the PSPO, which has been put into place specifically in baggerage, is looking to reduce vehicle nuisance, and it has done. The reports coming in on the vehicle nuisance have reduced, and the majority of the fixed penalty notices were for vehicle nuisance at baggerage that were issued.
Right. Councillor Barrow first, and then
Excuse me for being late. I had a flat tire at my as I'm looking at the door and a flat tire. When you say nuisance, vehicle nuisance, what does that include? Because here in the village in Copthall, we've got an area where they keep scratching the tires of the cars.
That's criminal damage.
Is that criminal damage?
But it all depends whether are we talking about it's scratched because of inconsiderate driving or people
Someone's gone along.
deliberate criminal damage.
Right.
Yeah, so it wouldn't be captured in the antisocial behaviour figures.
So what would that would be?
It would be criminal damage.
Right.
Yeah.
And when you talk of percentages, I always have this problem because it's
Same here.
percentages. We have so many.
I do.
You know,
Same here.
it could be 3% of 10,
Of what?
3% of
Yeah.
100%.
Yes.
So
Yes.
you know, it's far.
Yeah. So
Numbers.
So antisocial behaviour, the numbers here, I exactly the same issue. It blows my brain, especially when I'm at a weekend with the kids. So at 1,250 down to 848 reported antisocial behaviour incidents. That's the minus 32% is the best part of what we've got there. About 400 incidents less, 402 less.
Is there a particular area that has more than others? You know, because we'd like to think, particularly down here, we don't, as far as we know, we don't have that many. So
Yes.
is there a particular area that has that and gets more than others?
Yeah, so you've got there's Womborne and Penkridge and Huntington are both sat at 168 and 182, and then you've got Cheslin, Hay, Essington, Featherstone, and also Codswell, who are very similar, just over 100. Tristan and Seaston, they're only at 5. Wheaton Aston 49 and Kimber 56. So I think you're probably going to see a little bit of a difference there. If you, I suppose, if you looked at the types of area in terms of village or town and population, you might see those numbers kind of reflect how many people are in the area and what type of locations as well in terms of town or village.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Thank you.
But obviously that's certainly another. We used to drilling down in the police when you have to really start getting into the figures and looking at populations and looking at areas if you really wanted to kind of get into the detail of that.
Yeah. It's just interesting to say because with the percentages and the number of people who live here, it's all very difficult to say, well, we have more than so and so, or that, there's more problems here than anywhere else.
Exactly, and it can be very difficult to try and compare certain areas. You know, it's like trying to compare certain of some of our areas to say Cannock. You know, if you try and compare say Codsall to somewhere like Jadsmore, you just can't. And even trying to compare different areas within our own you know, within South Staffordshire. It is very difficult to try and offer that comparison, really, because a lot of factors sit behind those differences.
And it's antisocial behaviour. What do you class it? That neighbour disputes, maybe?
Well, I mean, our we call them appearance type descriptions, but essentially it's types of antisocial behaviour. So you've got community nuisance, you've got environmental, and I guess, and then you've also got personal nuisance as well. So community nuisance, I would imagine would in terms of an example, would be children causing problems in an area, etc. Maybe having an impact on more than one person. Drunk disorderly, maybe if that's what the classification has gone down as, maybe. And when you look at personal nuisance, that is literally like I'm having problems with my neighbour.
Yes.
So it's a bit more personal, or I've got a specific person who is causing me problems, as opposed to our community having problems with all of these people in a location. Does that make sense?
That's fine. Can I just also say about the young people and study behaviour?
No, can you switch those?
Because young people and antisocial behaviour, funnily enough, the space scheme, which we are running throughout the summer holidays specifically for young people, very, very well attended this year. I think more so than it has been previously. However, South Staffordshire has the lowest number of youth and lowest percentage of youth crime in the whole of Staffordshire, under 20%. So that's different. We have a different figure in Staffordshire anywhere else in Staffordshire. So I do think the perception of a lot of our communities is young people causing trouble out and about. Actually, it's not always.
Thank you. Okay, Councillor Evans next. Okay, Chris.
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. Yes, just 3 points that I've noted down. On domestic violence and domestic abuse, you've got this campaign in the autumn. We've been tying up into the UN camp 16 days of action against violence against women that starts every year on 25th of November. Secondly, on antisocial behaviour, we've had some, as you know, Maggie, with plastic bins being melted down. Is that reducing? I know that's a very specific type of offence. There's been issues locally. And lastly, I was just interested in sort of the trends. Councillor Barrow's been talking about statistics. I'm new to the council, so I wasn't around last visit. I was just curious as to why last winter was so bad, or has there been an increase and now it's starting to slow down? Thank you. Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, the campaign. Thank you. Yes, we will be tying it into the national. We've done that on several occasions before. I think it's white ribbon. It's white ribbon, isn't it, on the 25th of November? So yeah, we'll be linking into that. So thanks very much for that. The melting down of the bins, it has reduced. Summer holidays are finished. People are back at school. Nights are drawing in. So yeah, you're absolutely right. It has reduced. However, we want to make sure that next year we are on the front foot. So Jubilee Wood has had a fire check, and there've been the fire service have been to the ward, and every access point has now got signage. So I think we need to make sure that wherever we've had bins burnt previously, the fire service prior to the next school holidays just need to put some fire signage up. So yes, we'll be on to that. And statistics, why it was so high last year. I think there was a lot of more cross-border crime, possibly. That was a big issue, funnily enough, last year, and a lot of work has been done through ANPR, through the work with the Operation Bournemouth as well, working jointly across the borders. So I think really it was recognised at that time when the figures were high that something had to be put into place. The reaction was the Bournemouth team in December 22. Yeah. So unfortunately at that time, and then there was a spike in the vehicles that were being taken. Organised crime, I presume the organised crime groups came into it.
Yeah, and you know what, the team who is our local crime citizen tasking team who deal with the Operation Bournemouth, if you were to look at if you were to meet them, and then you consider that we've got a local sergeant, we've got some local officers. They have got a bit of a link into investigations team, CID. They have some assistance from the regional organised crime unit. And if you were to compare the vision of that team to the level of organised crime, the level of criminals, and I mean, when I talked about 109 arrests, and if you think what sits behind that is all the investigations, the forensic work on whether it be DNA, whether it be mobile phones, the preparing all the case files. I mean, they've done absolutely unbelievable. I mean, you would think there was, you know, like you see on TV, some massively big expert team set up, but I mean, they've done amazing. But yeah, this was in response to that spike, and it's still an ongoing challenge. And the Bournemouth team, you know, the tasking team who focus on Bournemouth for the foreseeable future, because we still are getting offended, that they are going to be here to stay until we hear otherwise.
Thank you both. Thank you. Councillor Harrison next. Thank you.
Thank you. I'll take advantage of the fact that Mr. Hopkins has had to drop out for a moment to ask a question and fill an otherwise void. It was so. Thank you very much for the presentation and for the information. So, a couple of things. First one, car crime, and in fact, I've just today been exchanging emails with one of our residents who had a break-in to steal the car keys. And of course, it's the facilitating crime, the breaking into the house, that's actually caused more distress and longer term, I would have to use the word psychological damage, than the actual car theft itself. And in a way, you know, they feel that if they hadn't had an RFID protecting bag, perhaps their house wouldn't have been broken into and they would have felt better. So in some ways, it's possible that they feel that they did the right thing and they came off worse as a result of it. And I don't really want to comment too much about that, so I appreciate it. But it is a problem, nevertheless, that part of the potential solution actually just encourages another crime, which can be worse than the crime it's designed to avoid. And just understanding that absolutely resources is a major issue for the police, as it is for most public operations these days. One of the issues is, and it falls out to the issue about handing out information, etc., to help them with marking their cars, etc. in future. I don't think this has happened to the relatives, to the residents I'm talking to, so probably need to chase that up with them and yourself. But clearly, one of the things that makes people feel secure is, of course, seeing police officers around on the patch. And clearly, in terms of car crime, that mostly happens in the middle of the night. So even if they are patrolling, people aren't going to see it and they're not going to feel safer. And obviously, I'm councillor down in Kinford, where we do have a particular problem. We're a long way away from Codsall here in terms of rapid response times from the police, understood. But we're also very close to Shropshire, West Midlands, Worcestershire, and everywhere else. So it's a car crime paradise from the point of view of disappearing over a border and just making your life harder. And I just wondered whether you had any comments about those kind of issues in terms of the issue of that being seen and then reinforcing that sort of sense of security for people who've had this double whammy of not just car crime, but had their house broken into as well, which has actually made them feel worse. Do you have any thoughts, suggestions, observations? Sorry, I'm putting you on the spot.
No. It's a really good point. What we're talking about here is it's that kind of how people feel and what they see, and that they might be a fancy British Bournemouth team, driving around and trying to catch these bad people, but people might not necessarily know that they're there because that they're in unmarked vehicles because that's what they need to do to get them. I suppose really maybe that's one for. Obviously, we've got the smart alert system. It's very good. It's I think it's a challenge just to try and make sure that's some consistency with all PCSOs who use it, just to kind of let people know that there has been an incident, or let people know that they are in an area that has been a concern for vehicle crime, and if they are in that area, then I'm going to be in this area between 7 and 9. Please come out and speak to me. Maybe people need. Maybe we need to do something else on social media, just to kind of say, listen, we are out and about tonight. You might not see us, but that's the intention. We are around. And just kind of start up that conversation, just offer that reassurance.
So I think that would be very helpful, and I think if we have to see the PCSO to the very least forward would be great. And very quickly, everything that Councillor Hopkins has read is just on another issue, which is more around the fly tipping. So I think you said 6 penalty notices have been issued, which great. Right, what was that for? Nuisance. And what about fly tipping in terms of nuisance and that? Do you have any information about that?
Sorry, because that's not in this.
Yeah, right, okay, fine. I mean, it's just the all-encompassing head of nuisance and, if you like, antisocial behaviour. They're not classed as antisocial behaviour per se. Okay, thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Harrison. Right, Councillor Hopkins next.
Yes.
Thank you. So on the, apologies if I've missed any of this, if this question's already been asked or I had to nip out. On the subject of domestic violence and all associated crimes with that. So you've talked about going into schools to, I guess, teach best behaviour, attitudes, and ways of thinking for young people, and you've got various plans in place, different schemes and projects to enable women to adapt their behaviour, carrying alarms and, I don't know, maybe staying in the light and whatever it is. But what is there in place to target the perpetrators, to get them to change their behaviour, the adults who are perpetrating the crimes? What initiatives are targeted at them to get them to change their behaviour?
I would say that it all depends on what the outcome of the investigation is, because if we're talking about a lower level domestic violence incident, when I say you might look at me like that, I do have to kind of say, if it's a very serious domestic, I know all domestic violence is serious, yeah, but if we're talking about a low level injury with first time offender, with first time report, or we're talking about a persistent domestic violence offender who's offended before, serious injury, lots of offences, then what I'm talking about is there's a difference there, because you could be issuing someone a conditional caution because it's their first offence. Okay? Or you could be going straight to court with a charge. Okay? So what I'm trying to say, I'm trying to put things into perspective in terms of if you're doing a conditional caution with somebody, in other words, it's a first time incident of domestic violence, that maybe two people they've had a drink, there's been an argument, someone's been pushed, or there's been a slap, nothing's ever happened before. We obviously make sure all the necessary supports are put in place, and we make sure there's positive action against the offender. But it may be that that offender might be eligible for a conditional caution, which is still conviction. Okay, but within the conditional caution, it's designed to offer a period of time for that person to either pay a compensation injury to a victim. So in other words, they have to do something, go to a doctor for anger management, go to New Era, which is a scheme set up for rehabilitation of domestic violence perpetrators. So that's why I mentioned that, because that's something that's there to offer a form of rehabilitation at that lower end of when I'm talking about conditional caution. Okay, so that's something that we would do if someone gets a conditional caution in custody for a domestic violence offence. They would be required to attend an appointment with New Era, which is a scheme that offers rehabilitation for offenders. And they would be that would be education and education, advice, support with anger management, things like that. So and that's the lower end of things. That's the starting point. Now, if that person reached that conditional caution, then the conditional caution goes, and then we'd send them straight to court. Okay, so if that happened, or if it's a more serious offence, someone who's been a persistent offender, someone who would be looking to go straight to a prosecution without looking at those other conditional cautions, then we've got our integrated offender management who would look at rehabilitation. That would be post conviction. There could be rehabilitation orders through the court, and again, New Era would also be involved in that as well. So when we're talking about what's being done to look at, that was part of your question, wasn't it, around rehabilitation? It's as I said, it all depends at what end of that. Is it the start of their offending history, or are we talking about down the line? There's two very different rehabilitation procedures.
Yeah. So that's great. If you've got somebody who's been, I guess, convicted, that they have to be convicted to go down, or is it just if there's a report of it, then they have to follow that up, or presumably it's got to be a formal complaint from the victim that goes through due process, and then that person, then the perpetrator, it then has to go through those different measures.
Yeah, so if it was a conditional caution, we'd still have interviewed that person. They would have had to admit what's happened, and then when we do the conditional caution, because if they don't admit it, then that takes the option of the conditional caution off the table. Then, and then we'd be looking to try and secure a prosecution if the evidence was there. If the offer is on the table for the conditional caution, in other words, if they admit it and it's that first time offence, and we're not talking about a really serious incident, we're talking about something that we've assessed as a lower level incident, and we can offer a conditional caution, we would every single time expect on that conditional caution there to be a requirement for them to attend rehabilitation with New Era. If they fail to attend that appointment with New Era, we would strip that caution away and we'd send them to court. That's at the lower end of the scale. Does that make sense? And I certainly, when I'm using this terminology, I certainly don't want to say that any form of domestic violence is it's not important. I'm just trying to kind of talk about, put things into perspective in terms of two ends of the scale, in terms of first time offending, what our options are, more serious offending, persistent offending, when we're talking about convictions, charges, and courts as opposed to conditional cautions. Does that make sense?
Yeah, thank you on that.
If there's anything else you need me to explain about it, then I can go into a bit more detail. I hope I've answered your question.
Yeah, I was sort of also interested in what is proactively being done. So you're proactively going into schools so that children don't go into the realms of that kind of violence. And you are proactively going out to women to say, take an alarm, change your behaviour in this way, or whatever, to keep yourself safe. I'm interested in, are there proactive initiatives to stop those potential offenders offending in the first place and change behaviour proactively before it turns into a violent incident?
I would say, unless you've got anything to add to that, Maggie, I'll go on. I'm not 100% sure in terms of if we're talking about adults who haven't offended yet. I'm not 100% sure. But if we're talking about maybe some of the people who have been repeat offenders in the past, and maybe we've already convicted them or they're on our radar, they haven't done anything again yet, then we'd always have on our radar who are our repeat domestic violence offenders, so that we would be able to work with. Obviously, Marek tends to deal with cases where we've got someone who maybe previously been convicted, or there's you might have to help me out with Marek a bit, Maggie.
Yeah.
But I'm fairly new to the Marek world in terms of our involvement.
No, that's okay. Marek is very much the high risk case, but the perpetrator cases from a very low level, I have to admit, yes, schools are visited by police and they're visited by New Era, and the discussions around domestic abuse is talking through with young people what they feel about violence and would they accept this, would they accept that. And worryingly, a few years ago, young people would accept violence. So what we have been trying to do is to turn the conversation around and say that that's not acceptable. Can you see why that's not acceptable? And hopefully through those conversations with the male and female pupils, that's when that thought process can come in. Other than that, unfortunately, there isn't any middle ground until the perpetrator perpetrates, for want of a better expression.
And at that point, we can obviously look at positive action. We can look at investigations and taking that appropriate action that's required based on what kind of case we're presented with, and then off the back of that, these cases would be fed into Marek to make sure that support is being put in place.
Thank you.
Just like to back up what Maggie and I have been saying. I'm very familiar with the excellent work done in not only South Staffordshire but Staffordshire, because I was on the South Staff Safe Neighbourhood panel and vice chairman for 8 years, and also the Crime Commissioners panel to date. I've just come off that now. And we covered antisocial behaviour, use of force, crime, stop and search, domestic violence, and you work really, really hard. You really do. I was at Cotswold High School only a couple of days ago, and I am aware of what you're doing there. So there's a lot of work going on, and to be commended. Thank you there. Thank you. Members, Sue, do you want to speak? Right, okay.
Sorry, just a really quick question. Do you think the element of the rise of domestic violence, the numbers, is it purely it is rising, or do you think that's due to some of the successes of the support services and the police and the changes in attitudes? Do you think there is an element of that?
I think so, because it's one of those situations where when you look at vehicle crime, you kind of want to see that reduction rate in the numbers. But when you look at harassment and domestic violence, if you're looking at a reduction or an increase, sometimes maybe you want to see the increase in reporting. And it's trying to kind of balance that, because more if you're encouraging more people to come forward, then you're going to get an increase in figures, because people maybe start to feel more comfortable and confident coming forward, because maybe they've heard about police taking positive action. Then we're going to get an increase in those figures, and it's that. Are we disappointed by the increase, or are we actually get to a point where we're happy to see that people are confident to report to us, because they know what kind of service they're going to get? It's just trying to balance that, isn't it? Yeah. And we did have a most wanted domestic violence perpetrator. He'd been wanted for a good few months and caught him yesterday. Brilliant. Yeah, he took his door off the hinges as well. So, yeah, which is always good. Obviously proportionate and necessary. And our Royal Military Police colleagues who are working with our officers at the moment, they were involved, so it was great for them. Yeah, just a bit of good news.
It's got all of the Staffordshire Police have got, I think it's a mirror, and on the back of the mirror is a number. Not sure how it works, and also there's lip balm, and these contain the helpline number for Stafford Women's Aid. So we are just putting loads of things out there. So you're absolutely right. We are glad in a sense, because for every report there's 35 unreported.
That's brilliant, and it's good to have the debate. Yes, right, Councillor Nelson.
Sorry, that's a bit late. Can I just ask a question about rural crime and how that's being tackled, and the numbers kind of brought down for that?
I haven't got any figures for rural crime in front of me. So if you wanted some specific information from that, I'd be happy to try and look into it outside of the meeting, but I wouldn't want to try and make anything up, because I don't know. But obviously we have got PCSO who is specific to rural crime, who regularly do. Again, it's another issue where you're talking about criminality that's coming over from other areas, impacting on West Mercia, impacting on ourselves. But we regularly do collaboration with other forces, and we'll also look at crime prevention, smart water, and things like that for rural crime. But if you did want something specific outside of the meeting, then I'm happy for you to just make contact, and I can see what I can get.
Okay. Once again, thanks both very much, and for members, it's a really lively debate, much appreciated. There is a lot of work going on behind the scenes, and this last 8 years for me has been fascinating. But, well done you. Okay, so we're going to move on to item 5, which is air quality. South Council Environmental Health and Licensing, and that's Jenny Rose. Good to you, Jenny.
Good evening, members. Thank you very much, Chair. The purpose of the report is to update on the air quality position across South Staffordshire, and the plans that we have going forward for the following year. As most of you will be aware, air quality has improved quite significantly over the last few decades, largely because of the industrial processes have changed significantly, the way people heat their homes. So we've moved away from coal fires, traditional coal fires, and also improvements in transport as well. Especially more recently with the move more towards electric vehicles. We consider 3 pollutants largely in terms of air quality, and they are the nitrogen oxides or NOx, ammonia and particulate matter. So the nitrogen oxides, those are the pollutants that generally come from transport, emissions from transport. and they impact on human health, particularly worsening respiratory illnesses, so asthmas and things like that. They make those illnesses worse. The move more recently has been towards measuring and understanding more about fine particulate matters. So that's everything in the air which isn't actually a gas. So it's very, very small dust particles. It's so small that you're not able to see them, but that means that they can be inhaled into the lungs, which is what gives us concern in terms of air quality. In the report itself, I've put in, I've included a map which is on the top of the 3rd page of the report, a colourful map of the UK. And that just highlights where the particulate matter, this is the 2.5 particulate matter. So this is below 2.5 micrometers diameter. So very, very small particulate matter. And the concentrations are obviously focused where you would expect on the more urban areas. But that also reflects as well that the particulate matter travels considerable distances. So some of this particulate matter will be from other countries. The source of these is from emissions in other countries. Likewise, some of air emissions will travel abroad as well. And I think that just reflects that you can see that the concentrations are much higher in the southeast of the country, and for the South Staffordshire, we fare pretty well. We're on the good side of those. We are required to review and assess air quality, and so some years ago, where an exceedance was likely in air quality, and I'm particularly talking here about the nitrogen oxides, which is what we measure on a regular basis. We've measured that for quite a few years in South Staffs now, so we've got a baseline of that over a number of years. Where we thought that we might have exceedances across the district, we implemented air quality management areas. And initially, when this legislation first came in, we had 5 of those areas. At the moment, we have only 1 of those which remains. But we've never, in all the years since we've had it, we've never exceeded the guidelines for air quality in that area. That area is it's quite close to Calf Heath. It's on the A5 by the truck stop. I don't know if anybody's aware of that area there. So with the traffic lights as well, what contributes to it quite significantly is the stopping and starting of vehicles, and particularly the HGVs in that location. But I'm really pleased to report that even in that area, which is the area where we've got the highest levels of the nitrogen oxides, they are below the recommended levels. We've never exceeded. So we're actually looking to revoke the air quality management area, which will be lovely. So across the district, we won't have any air quality management areas because we've got very good air quality across South Staffordshire district. What that will mean, what we'll be required to do then, is to implement an air quality strategy. So we'll sort of slightly change the way that we look to managing it. And because of that, we're looking to bring in some consultants to have a look at the baseline air quality across the district, which will include not just the nitrous oxides that we measure regularly. We've got 17 locations across the district where we've got air quality tubes monitors out. We collect those in every month, and they get sent away to be analysed. They will build on that. They will see what we're doing, where we're monitoring. But because we can move away now to more of a longer term strategy, we can then factor into that where we've got construction, where we've got some new industry and differences across the district. We can factor that in to sort of managing on a strategy basis into the future. And we'll use their feedback. We'll ask them to recommend where we need to do any particulate monitoring if they feel that there is the need across the district. Ongoing work that we do across Staffordshire, there is the Eco Stars project, which is around encouraging HGVs to employ more green techniques, and we're starting to see some of the results from that coming through as well now. That's been in place now for about 5 or 6 years, and we do that across the whole of Staffordshire. We also have a programme of environmental permitting. So these are some of our industrial processes where we very closely monitor what they do and how they reduce emissions into the atmosphere. So how they stop emissions and the types of work that they're doing. And from the days when we sort of first started environmental permitting, we have fewer now because the processes have become cleaner. So we have fewer actual permits, and those that we do, we're very confident in what they do. They look after the processes very well. So actually their inspection regimes are reducing as well. But we still monitor and inspect and visit those where appropriate. One of the big ways really that we contribute to reducing air quality across the district is in commenting on planning applications and planning consultations, and sort of influencing that. So encouraging good transport networks, encouraging cycle routes between new house build, and looking at where industrial processes are sited as well, so it has the least impact. So that the team regularly make comment on planning applications. And we also have smoke control areas in place in the district. Again, these go back to the sort of mid-70s. So this goes back to the time where smokeless fuel was coming onto the market rather than the new sort of traditional coal. And we brought into place some smoke control areas. They don't cover the whole of the district, and that's quite important now when we talk about the particulate matter, because one of the sources of particulate matter is burning, and particularly log burners and things like that. So we're looking at sort of revoking the smoke control areas that were in place, but introducing or implementing a new smoke control area across the whole of the district, which will make it easier for us. We don't get a lot, but we do pick up a number of complaints every year about burning of logs and log burners, sort of complaints between different domestic premises. So that would help us as well to be able to sort of monitor that and act on those. So number of things really going forward that we're looking at improving air quality, but getting that baseline, getting some assistance from consultants to review the whole of the district, and then working that up towards an air quality strategy for us into the future. But very much messages, we do have very good air quality across the whole of the district. Very pleased to report. So thank you, Chair. That concludes my report. Thank you. Happy for questions.
Thank you, Jenny. Any questions, please, or observations from people? Yes, Councillor Evans, and then Councillor Barrow, and then Councillor Hopkins. Thank you. Councillor Evans.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I just wanted some clarification on table 2.1 on the report. what exactly is the safe limit for the particulate matter? Because that table, I think it shows the drop of, I'll bring it up. It shows a drop in particulate matter, but I wasn't sure what the threshold was. Thank you.
Are you referring to the report that we send off to DEFRA rather than the report today, the committee report, the wider report?
Yeah.
Am I looking at right? Just bear with me. Let me bring that one up.
Got another question.
Apologies, I thought I'd got it open. I've got it. Got it. Table 2.1, did you say? Bear with me a moment. Two point one. Do you want to ask me the next question and I'll just have a quick look at all of them? There's quite a lot of data on there. Let me just digest that one a moment.
Yeah. Thank you. Sorry, my screen had locked. I couldn't see my other question. My other question, I guess the report goes on about there were two sites called HUN 1 and HUN 2, and it says HUN 2 wasn't considered because there was a HUN 1 was nearby. I was just wondering whether you had any more details as to why HUN 2 wasn't considered. Thank you. And
sorry, which page was that on?
that is on a table. It shows here we are. It's entitled Individual Commitments, and the page number is number 19, page 90.
Apologies, there's so many tables in this, I don't remember all of them. Do you have a table number? I'm sorry, I think the page numbers are slightly different, aren't they, in your packs?
Yeah. There's no table number for this one. The table number is for the previous question. That was table 2.
Table 2. I'd need to have a look at where it refers to it in the report. I think what it is that we've moved the tubes, and so the location of the tubes to get a better reading, which I think is in response to when we had some previous consultants do some work and they advised on some new locations, and I think that's why I think the HUN is Huntington, and they did recommend a new location. So I think we've moved the tubes from one location to another, so that's why the one set of data is not considered from the old location.
Thank you.
I think, and I'll go back to table 2, so 2.1. So the level of exceedance, so that this is the air quality management area that we've got. It calls it Oak Farm, which is that area on the A5. So the figure of exceedance is at 39.3, but our level has been at 25.6. So it's well below that exceedance level. Does that answer that question?
What exactly is the exceedance level set at we're below?
So that the exceedance level is a government set target. So and we're below that level.
Thank you. So
Mr. Barrett?
Just really in conservation, I've always been wondering, long burning fires, I mean, that become so popular. And I had one myself in my previous property. And I could never quite understand how they were allowed to burn logs and lots of other things really on the fires, and yet you couldn't burn a piece of coal. I've always thought that there should have been restrictions on, as much as I love them, restrictions on log burning, because the smoke and the fumes that come out from a chimney for log burning fires it's in my opinion, I don't know how serious it is, but it looks as bad as if you were doing the fires. So, I think it is interesting that we are now looking at those, because I feel sure that they must be adding to the pollution.
There are differences in the fuels that you can burn on log burners. So there are compliant fuels. So more of the sort of dried kindling and things like that is acceptable to use, and that's appropriate fuel to use. It's some of the wetter logs and things like that sometimes people use, and they will emit more emissions.
Yeah.
We are intending to put out some social media messages as well, because there's also the implications of the air quality within the room that you use in the log burn within as well. So just to raise awareness for that. Yeah.
Fumes, whether you like to, don't like, you can always smell them burn.
So I'd add to that is we've got bonfire night coming along, so so there's that as well. We too have two log burners in our last property. We haven't now, but as you say, Jenny, there's smoke in the room sometimes. Wasn't good. Wasn't good. So Fiona, Councillor Hopkins, next.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'm just wondering if you're in a position to talk a little bit about air quality around schools. I believe there are probably quite a lot of schools that are actually monitoring their own air quality. Are you tying up with them? Are they supplying any kind of figures? Is there any organised push to, in the report you mentioned anti-idle zones? Do you have any figure for how successful any of those campaigns are?
We don't. None of the schools share data with us. Actually, I'd be really interested to see that if they do. We're not aware of any at the moment.
The anti-idling zones are a national campaign, to be honest, and I know that a lot of the schools encourage it as well. But because we haven't got the levels, the figures aren't showing that we've got poor air quality, so we're not doing that much campaigning around it. But we will support schools, and we will support the anti-idling campaigns, definitely.
Thank you. Yeah, I'm just concerned, obviously, because in Millbrook there's an ever-increasing flow of traffic, and there will be more in the future. So it would just be good to pin it down, because a lot of parents, even though they're told about not sitting with the engine running, waiting to pick up, you still see it happening. So it would just be, I think, good to tie up with that, maybe a project with some of the schools that can feed in what they're getting. If they're monitoring it, it would make sense to do something with that data. Thank you.
Right, thank you, members. Any more questions or observations? No? Jenny, thanks very much. That's excellent. Thank you. I'm sure members will agree with that. So we move on to item 4, which is the work plan 2023-24. Assistant Director Community Services, Mark Jenkinson. Over to you, Mark.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Thank you, members. A couple of items to discuss in terms of the work programme. As you're probably aware, tonight's meeting is gone in for a longer slot of 2 hours. I wasn't sure that was the case. I was getting quite nervous when we hit the hour mark, and I didn't think Jenny was going to get to go, but we'll now look to extend the meeting again. We put Health Watch colleagues off from attending today, as we thought with 2 agenda items we might run over, and I know from a member's point of view, if it's and that if it finishes early, you'll be happy, but if it goes on longer, you'll probably be disappointed with us. So hopefully now we've got a 2-hour slot. We shouldn't go over that, but it gives the speakers time to go through their items. So today we didn't have Health Watch in attendance, but they will be present at the next meeting to give an update on all things Health Watch, and again the ability to feedback what comes out of this committee into the county-wide committee. Tomorrow myself, Councillor Chapman, Councillor Harrison and Perry have got a meeting with Jeremy Pert, who's the chair of the county-wide Healthy Select Committee. As members may be aware, Councillor Harrison raised via the chairman issues in relation to cross-border health. I'm not sure if that has been picked up in the right way from a county perspective, but hopefully we'll be able to articulate that tomorrow and ensure Councillor Pert's aware of the issues which we're flagging from a South Staffordshire perspective. Again, we need to operate within the joint code, but should Councillor Pert be happy that those issues are exclusive to ourselves in South Staffordshire, again, hopefully that will be an area for discussion, and if it is, we might be able to get the relevant NHS bodies to December's meeting to start discussing those points. Maggie and Inspector Platt have updated today on community safety plan and where we are. That won't come back again till later next year, which will give everybody involved time to develop those actions and move things along, and hopefully we'll see some further reductions. So depending on how tomorrow goes, hopefully we'll have some NHS focus, but also what we'll be looking to do potentially as part of this committee as well. We've got some work ongoing with a number of partners at the moment regarding our partnership plan, which is built on from locality working. So we'll get an update to the next committee, so members are aware of what all partners are looking to do. There's two distinct areas that plan, one focusing on economy and one focusing on health and wellbeing. In addition to that as well, we've got some potential funding available to all districts and boroughs via the county council. Some of that is left over from COVID and needs to be spent on areas that impact on health inequalities. That's a precursor potentially for some more longer term and reoccurring funding coming through from the ICS as well. So it's an opportunity for us to demonstrate at a local level we can use that money in the right ways, and hopefully that will flow in the future. So those will be agenda items that we've got coming forward. But as always, it's a member-led committee members. So if there's any local issues which are pertinent to yourselves or anything else you'd like to get on the agenda, please let us know, and myself and Councillor Chapman will get together and try and get the right people here to discuss that with you.
Councillor Barrow, Councillor Barrow, to you.
A couple of issues I just wanted to bring up today. Obviously, we had a very successful breast cancer. A very successful breast cancer campaign. I'd also like to sort of get feedback on that, because I know lots of people came who wouldn't normally have been. But I'd also like to know what we're doing about prostate cancer for men, because I think that's equally as important. And I know another issue is the health people we've had recently. They were doing the, you can have a health care check, couldn't you? It'd be interesting to know how many people actually attended that, and really what the outcome was, to see if we couldn't perhaps push that a little more. I was a bit concerned that it was the over six? I know I didn't qualify, but I think there's some of us who are older and hopefully fitter than some. I just think that we could perhaps push it across the board, and we all need to know as our blood pressure goes up, are we exercising enough, are we healthy? But I would just like to have some feedback on that, Mark, if possible. And also, I just wanted as well to mention mental health. I mean, that's an issue that gets talked about all the time. If we could have some information on how we're moving forward with mental health, really, particularly in younger teenagers. I mean, you hear now the schools, etc. There's younger people with mental health issues, particularly after COVID. And what are we doing about it, really? What are how's the health service
looking at it and moving it forward and trying to address some of the issues. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Barrow. Yes, again, those are elements we can bring back to the committee in terms of breast screening. As you're aware, one of the key successes of this committee was to get the breast screening back in Codsall. Again, we've given a commitment as a council that as part of that, I think it's a 4-year cycle, they can utilise the space at the front of the building. So again, next time, I think probably a couple of years, that we'll be back. I think last time we did get some feedback in terms of results and how well it went, and I think having the service back locally demonstrated the take-up rate was good. I think from recollection, our take-up rate in South Sussex is good anyway for breast screening, but it obviously helped that being more local. So I'll follow that one up, Councillor Barrow, to see if we can get some stats on that. Prostate cancer, I need to check on that one, Councillor Barrow, in terms of whether that's something we could do locally. Health checks, again, they are commissioned via Public Health at the County Council and delivered locally by Everyone Health. Again, I think take-up was sporadic and was dependent on whether GPs would offer that service. I think, but with that being commissioned out and offered across the patch, it will be interesting to see what take-up's been like, Councillor Barrow. So again, we can check that. Whether we'd get it on a population basis, I'm not sure. We might get it on a GP basis. It depends how the I think it's been delivered by the Wellbeing team, and again, we've had it internally as well for staff, and I think that's been taken up well. But Rob Sharrett over there will be able to update more on that. But I think it is good to obviously have it locally. And in terms of mental health updates, again, I don't think we'll be in a position to scrutinise it locally, as it would form part of the county committee. However, we can approach MPFT to see if they'd come to the committee to give an update and let us know what work's been taking place locally. So I'll make a note of all those, Councillor Barrow, and discuss with Councillor Chapman when we can get them on the agenda.
Great, thanks, Hopkins. Did you want to speak?
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank
you. It's just an observation from me really. It's back to Jenny. Something I wanted to raise, and I should have done earlier on. Sorry. And possibly with the police as well. I've come across 2 HGV lorries recently in the village on quiet lanes, and I'm just wondering, with regard to the clean air, and the restriction of HGV lorries in our villages, because it isn't good. And can we look at having restrictions in specific lanes in villages? I'm looking at open lanes this morning. We have 2 HGV lorries coming along open lanes, with cars going up onto the pavement. And you think, well, clean air. Yeah. So it's not just about Cotswold, it's about the whole of South Staffordshire. I'm sure you've got it in Bilrock and Leetnaston, etc. But I wouldn't mind a comment. Thank you.
I think it would be interesting to look at, but I think given that we've got such good air quality in the district, you're then almost going into the similar scenarios as your central Birmingham's and the cities where there's, the kind of charging to go through and that type of thing. Fortunately, we don't have those kind of issues to get involved in, but I think it would be a huge thing to implement, I have to say. But I understand what you're saying, and see if there's anything that we can do, if there's any ways around. But
I mean, just make a comment on that. I think the which is that it affects the air. It's the size of the vehicles.
What's the size?
Yeah, they come back to the police, because now they're sort of 3/4 of their own property. So big, and you're on a twisty lane, and it's very difficult. I had the same experience myself today, and you have to go on one foot after the lorry companies coming at you. They don't. So you have no option. you know, hopefully you don't see anybody walking there. But it is a very difficult one, particularly to both Cotswold and Millbrook and all of the smaller areas.
So I further add to this, because it was actually a very dangerous situation that I was aware of this morning. Just going along Oaken Lanes, I was just coming back from a meeting from here, and we had dog walkers, and they had to jump into one of the gardens because this huge lorry was coming down. It took up the best part of the road, and it was actually quite a scary situation. And I thought, well, what do we do about this sort of thing? It wasn't funny. It wasn't funny. No. So, you know, I'm not Oaken Lanes is just one lane in Cotswold, but as you've just said, we've got Bilbrook, Wheaton, Aston, Purton, wherever we are, Brood. But that was actually a dangerous, and I wasn't quick enough to get my phone out to take a photograph of the lorry. I was quite cross with myself actually, as it was the whole thing finished, and I thought, I should take a photograph. Okay, I used to have a dash cam. Going to get one now. Yeah.
I was just going to suggest that might be down to SatNav sending those large wagons on unsuitable roads because it's the shortest from A to B potentially.
Okay, I accept that. Fact was that the driver was quite arrogant actually, and he was smiling at the fact that he was sending dog walkers over into the garden, and it wasn't a funny situation. I thought he was very arrogant.
No, I absolutely, I'm not endorsing what the driver to do. There's just a possible explanation for why they're there in the first place.
Anyway, Vivian, okay, it's just an observation. So, yeah. Thank you.
Chair, I was just going to say do you know if there's any restrictions on the roads?
There are some restrictions on the speeding right and down Heathmill Lane particularly. There are restrictions, and we got them through the Virtues Bridge. So, you know, they're coming through the village.
Yeah.
So they're huge. I mean, you look at the restrictions, you think what? The size of this vehicle in comparison to that size.
Do you want to speak to it?
Yeah, it's just to kind of answer that really. So if we're talking about a road which has got a physical sign restriction, then I'd like to think, you know, if we've got that, and then we've got dash cam or anyone captured anything, and we can kind of put those two together, then that obviously helps because we can gives us that sign and that presence where they shouldn't be, gives us a few options. You know, and then if you've got that presence and it is causing those issues and there isn't the sign, then it's just about, you know, putting those things forward to try and see if there is an opportunity to get the sign. But then you've also got all the other issues, which are, you know, where is the vehicle trying to get to? Is there any other? You know, it's just a case of, you know, you've got to highlight a location which might benefit from that restriction, and then they've then got to look into whether we can put that in place. And it wouldn't normally be something that we maybe advise on, but it wouldn't be something that we would necessarily have any power to put in place.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Thanks, Jane. Okay. Right. Thank you, Mark. Anything else that we need to cover?
Just to update, Madam Chairman, that Councillor Kath Perry will be the County Council representative that sits on the committee. As Councillor Chapman has a seat as our chairman on the county-wide committee, we get a representative from the county, so Kath will fulfil that role going forward and may want to update on any specific items that come out of the county committee.
Okay, thanks very much, Mark. Okay, well, any other business members? If there's anything you'd like to bring up? Well, it's been a long meeting, but actually a very productive meeting, and I just want to thank you all for your participation, but also to the presenters. Thank you all very much and to Mark for the work he does for us. He does work very hard. And thank you all for coming. Okay. Thank you, everybody. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Safe journey home. No issues. Thanks, Doris. Oh, sorry, just.